So, let's start talking about coding. So, programming or coding allows you to control a computer. There are many different languages, as are listed here. There's Java, JavaScript, Python, Kotlin, C, C++, Scala, and many more. And each of them has their own advantage. So, why do we have so many languages in the first place? Well, first of all, some people would have their preference. In one language, it does this way. In this, you have to write this, and this you write it a different way. So, it comes down to preference and the style or philosophy. So each of these different languages are a little bit different to each other fundamentally. And because of those, you might choose one over the other. But in this course, we will learn Java. So, let's look at some examples of coding. So, imagine you want to search up ice cream on Safari or Chrome, which are both web browsers. So, you, which is the user, wants to search up ice cream. So, the application takes some input from you that, hey, give me some pictures about ice cream. I need to know about ice cream. It's what I want to do. So, the application says, okay, right? He needs to do that. So, we'll send it to the operating system. So, the operating system's like, okay, we need to process and get pictures of ice cream from the web. So, the operating system communicates with the actual physical hardware. The operating system application, they're both software, which is virtual, but the hardware is the actual real stuff. So it uses the hardware like the Wi-Fi routers to get you some pictures of that ice cream. Then the hardware sends it back to the operating system, and the application gets it from the operating system. So, the application, or app for short, and the operating system, which can be Mac, Windows, or even Linux, which is an operating system that is similar to Mac. All of these are made in code. So, if you learn to code, you can harness the power of all of these different levels of a computer and help people do lots and lots of things. Now that you know what a computer is and what programming is, you have to know what to put in your code. This is where it gets interesting. As you might have already heard, computers are pretty dumb, but they have an extraordinarily good ability to follow whatever you tell it to. So, you have to tell it every single minute detail, just like a baby. Sorry to all the babies for putting you on the spot. I meant no offense, and you're obviously smarter than computers. To tell a baby to do something, you have to tell them every single baby step. And you have to do the same thing with computers. So, in this section, we will talk about how to spoon feed a computer and what kind of instructions it understands. So now let's start with step-by-step instructions. So, imagine your parents have called you to the dining room because they need a utensil to eat something. And you know that something is a fruit. So, you're in the porch. So first of all, you need to get to the dining room. So the step-by-step instructions would be one step, then another step, then another step, then another step, then another step. Oh, that's good enough. You don't have to move anymore. Right? So, this is a step-by-step instruction. When you're telling them every single thing to do. Since this is really monotonous and we really don't want to tell the computer to do a step, and then another step, and then another step, then we can use repetition. Instead of saying one step, two step, three step, four step, we can just say, go forward 5 times. Or, in this case, just go forward 3. Now we're in the dining room, and we have to find whichever fruit our parents want to eat. So, we can use loops with conditions. So, we can go diagonally until we find a fruit. So, you go in this loop, you go one step, you check, hey, have I found an apple? No. You go another step, another step, another step. And then when you find the apple, you're like, hey, I found the apple, so I don't need to go diagonal anymore. Now we come to the memory, or scratch pad. So, when you're in the living room, remember, you still have to get the utensil to help your parents eat with the fruit you saw. You have to remember which fruit you saw. So, you have to remember that, hey, I saw an apple in the dining room. It was an apple, right? Not any other fruit, it was an apple. This is kind of like a notebook or your actual memory where you write it down, right? You got to remember that later, right? Or you remember it. Okay, I saw this. I need this later. So, after we make our way back into the kitchen, we need to decide what kind of utensils to bring. So, you know that if the fruit is an orange, then you have to grab a fork to eat all of the individual pieces. But if it's another fruit, any other fruit, you need to bring a knife so that you can cut it. So, what fruit was there? Right, it was an apple. So, you go through. Is the fruit an orange? No. So, since it's not an orange, you have to grab the knife. So, you go and grab the knife. And then you go all the way back to the dining room and bring it to your parents, and you can eat some lovely, lovely apples. So now, let's summarize our adventure to find which fruit our parents were eating and to find the right utensil to bring. First, we had to go some steps forward, so we used the step-by-step approach. But then, we figured out a better way, the repetitive approach. So, with those two, we made our way to the entrance of the dining room, and we used repetition with conditions to find our fruit, which happened to be an apple. Then, when we found the apple, we kept the apple in our memory to remember later. Then, we went all the way to the kitchen, and we had to decide what utensil we had to bring. And since it was an apple, when you remember that it's an apple, you say, oh, so it's not an orange, so we're not bringing a fork. Right, so we must be bringing a knife. So we brought a knife. So, those are all of the different ways that you can communicate with a computer through code. So, in this course, like I've said earlier, you will learn Java. So, why are we learning Java instead of any of the other languages that I showed you earlier? Well, there's a couple reasons. First, it is used to build Android apps. These are the ones on Samsung or Google phones. Second, it is a very popular language and it is very widely used. Third, it's great for understanding concepts because there's certain things that you have to do in Java that are just not there in other languages. Though this may sound daunting, it is really, really good for your learning.